My name is Kanji Sahara, and I want to welcome all of you to the San Fernando Valley Community Center for our one-day showing of our traveling exhibit. Now, we turned in our proposal to the National Park Service about 2 years ago, and then we started working on it about a year ago. And when we turned in our proposal, we said that the San Fernando Valley Japanese American Community Center is our fiscal sponsor. So we're having this one-day showing to show our appreciation to the San Fernando Valley Japanese American Community Center. And then tomorrow, we're going to ship the thing down to San Diego, and then we'll have our first full-length showing down there at the History Center in Balboa Park. Now, I thought it would be a little interesting to talk about how this exhibit came about. Now, the first officer of Tuna Canyon, or the director of Tuna Canyon, was a man named Merle Scott. And he was with the Department of Immigration and Naturalization, taking care of the borders and stuff like that. But he was appointed the first officer. Okay, and he was a, real kind man. And let me tell you, read what he said to the East States when they first arrived at Tuna Canyon. When the nations of Japan and the United States become belligerents, we Americans are naturally 100% patriotic for the United States. But you are citizens of Japan, and it is unavoidable that you feel for your country. But let's set aside that matter, and I want you to consider this place within our fence, our home together, and cooperate with us. So that was his attitude. And the thing that he did was, he had the guards of Tuna Canyon Detention Station, eat in the same missile and eat the same food as the detainees. Okay, that was his attitude. And he kept on emphasizing to the guards that these people here in the prison were not criminals, but they were just aliens, that there were a war between the two countries. And then what he did was, Merle Scott took a lot of photographs. The photographs you see in the gym are the ones that he took. And he took photographs of the guard tower, the fence, the guard station and stuff like that. And then when you see the photographs of Manzanar, the ones that were taken by Ansel Adams, those photographs do not show guard towers or things like that, because Ansel Adams was commissioned to do photographs of contented people. But here, Merle Scott wanted to show the real situation in Tuna Canyon. Okay, now, after he took the photographs, he did not send it to the, send it over to the government, but he gave it to his family to keep for safekeeping. Now, this is Tuna Canyon, which is in Tahunga, but there was another internment camp in Griffith Park, where the tribal town is. There was an internment camp there, and that one there had double rows of fence. The fence were spaced 8 feet apart and 10 feet tall, and they had floodlights at the end and stuff like that. So it looked like, Guantanamo, but there are no known photographs of the internment camp at Griffith Park. So it's hard to tell that Griffith Park story. But anyway, that when our coalition was first formed, the Tuna Canyon Detention Station Coalition, we had a meeting, and one day a young man in the back said, he has photographs of Tuna Canyon. So he said, how did you have photographs of Tuna Canyon? And he said he was the grandson of Merle Scott. Okay, so that's how these photographs came about. And what we decided to do was have a traveling exhibit that showed the Merle Scott photographs. So that's what we're doing today. So I think Merle Scott, 75 years ago, wanted the story of Tuna Canyon told to the public. And that's what we're doing today. We're telling the story of the Tuna Canyon Detention Station. Now, let's see, the first speaker is going to be the president the San Fernando Valley Japanese American Community Center, and he's going to welcome all of you. Thank you.
On behalf of the Community Center, I'd like to welcome all the distinguished guests, honoree, and our friends to this first exhibit of our Tuna Canyon detention camp. And also at the same time, congratulate Nancy, all the staff and the committee, which they worked very, very hard. I've seen it, they worked for the last 3 years to get this exhibit on display. But this is just a legacy to preserve the past and to educate our younger, our grandchildren, or next future generation. So on that note, once again, I'd like to congratulate the Tuna Canyon Group and thank all of you for coming today to view the exhibit. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Lloyd Hitt, and he's a retired pharmacist, and he's a local historian. So he's the main person that found out about the Tuna Canyon story. Lloyd.
Thank you. What a crowd. So nice to see everybody here. Someone asked me, I guess about a month ago, what does the exhibit mean to me? And of the many community projects I've championed over the years, and it's been a lot, to be involved in the Tuna Canyon exhibit, Only the Oaks Remain, has been the most important project for me. The camp's history is relevant to the past, to the present, and to the future. More important to our future. For me, the exhibit represents 10 years, that's when I started, of researching and preparation by people of a wide range of talents, races, and ethnicities. Our goal is to determine what happened at the World War II Tuna Camp, and more important, to educate and remind the American public that it must never happen again. The timing is perfect with the world in its current state as people are divided over race and religion, as East meets the West. The exhibit reminds us of how a few races coming together can spread fear that affects the outcome of how a nation responds to war in a time of crisis. For over 70 years, the Tuna Camp kind of stepped into the shadows, where history often resides, only to be rediscovered by those of us who care, and that's why the exhibit is important to me. And last, let me say, my late friend Paul Janishi, some of you know him, would be proud of us. Thank you.
Well, next, I'd like to have the Consul General of Los Angeles from Japan, Akira Chiba. Now, Mr. Chiba said that he's been to the U.S. 3 times, total of 20 years. Oh no, not one total of 20 years, total of 7 years, huh? And that the 3 times were spaced by 20 years apart. So he's noticed big changes in the people of the United States. I think he noticed big change in the Japanese people too, from the Issei to the Nisei to the Sansei. Would you come up here, Consul?
Good afternoon. It is my honor to join today for this dedication of Only the Oaks Remain in memory of Tuna Canyon Detention Station. I'd like to acknowledge the Honorable Norman Mineta, Assembly Member Patty Lopez, Supervisor Michael Antonovich, and I also see royalties among us, right in the front, and distinguished guests, but today as family members. Among them are Alhambra Mayor Gary Yamauchi and LAPD Deputy Chief Terry Hara. Since my arrival in Los Angeles at the end of July, I've had the chance to visit several museums memorializing the story of the Japanese American community, including the Japanese American National Museum and Go for Broke, and was also present at the recent dedication of the Pomona Assembly Center plaque, as well as the Aloha dinner last night. And I've been deeply moved by all these events. All of these experiences have impressed upon me the resilience of the Japanese American people in the face of tremendous challenges and your tireless commitment to keeping alive the memories of injustices so that future generations can learn the lessons of history. I commend the Tuna Canyon Detention Station Coalition for your remarkable achievements in just 3 short years. I have learned of your persuasion efforts at City Hall, application for and eventual receipt of a grant from the National Park Service. My predecessor, Ambassador Harry Horinochi, was very happy to be part of such effort. And now we witness the opening of Only the Oaks Remain. Today is a day to celebrate as a community because it is through so many people coming together in support of this cause that the realization of this exhibit has been achieved. And I'd like to acknowledge all those in the city of Los Angeles, including the city council members who voted in favor of this historic recognition, the National Park Service for granting the funds, and all those near and far who made this possible. I'd like to especially recognize the members of the Tuna Canyon Detention Station Coalition, Ms. Nancy Oda, Dr. Lloyd Pitt, and all members for inspiring leadership. Finally, I'd like to express my heartfelt gratitude on behalf of myself for allowing me to be a part of this community as well. Thank you very much.
We next like to have Kara Miyashima come up here. Kara is the National Park Service grant administrator, and she's from Denver, Colorado. So here she comes, and she's going to say a few words.
Thank you, everyone. I didn't realize I was going to be coming up here to say a few words, but this is a little caught off guard. But I wanted to say that on behalf of the National Park Service, I'm very honored to be here with you all today to commemorate the history of the Tuna Canyon Detention Station and to dedicate these traveling exhibits that have been completed. The National Park Service awarded the San Fernando Valley Japanese American Community Center a grant of over $102,000 to complete this project. The Japanese American Confinement Sites Grant Program was established to help preserve and interpret the history of Japanese American incarceration during World War II. And I just want to congratulate all of those who worked on this project, Nancy Oda, Kanji Sahara, Russell Endo, and the committee. I know there are several people who dedicated their time and put in a lot of hard work to complete this project. Not only is it very significant place in history, it's one that is less known about, and I think their efforts to document this history, which is lesser known, to recognize the families, the hardships and struggles that our families went through is very, very important. And the issues that were faced during this time are still very relevant today. And so I think it's very, very important that this exhibit is going out to the public so that they can have a greater understanding of the fragility of our civil and constitutional rights and what our responsibilities are to continue to safeguard those. So thank you everybody for all of your hard work, and the National Park Service is very appreciative of your work and glad to be a very small part of the greater work that you're doing. Thank you.
Then next is Patty Lopez, and she's the State Assembly person for District 39.
Good afternoon to all. What an honor to be here this afternoon with all of you. I just want to thank you, Nancy Onana, for inviting me to be attending this special occasion. And also, I also want to thank you, the Tuna Detention Station Coalition, for creating this beautiful exhibit dedicated itself to raise public awareness about these difficult times in our nation. They know the importance of educating our future and generation to significant in that Tuna Canyon Detention and we violated the civil rights took place in there. This is a story that many Americans know very little about. I would like to commend coalition for this effort to help understanding and learning from the past mistakes. This is the only way that we can prevent history from repeating themselves. Thank you so much for inviting me. God bless you. And also, I want to present a member resolution for this occasion. And
Say Nancy.
Nancy, if you can please come and receive this resolution in behalf of the State Assembly District 39.
On behalf of the California State Legislation and the 39 Assembly District, I would like to commend you for your ongoing efforts to preserve the stories of the Japanese, German, Italian, Peruvian, and other immigrants at the Tuna Canyon Detention Station. Thank you for creating the only The Oaks Remain traveling exhibit to educate local residents about this difficult period in our nation's history. Best wishes for your continued success. On behalf of the California State Legislature and the 39th Assembly District, I would like to commend you for your ongoing efforts to preserve the stories of Japanese, German, Italian, Peruvians, and other immigrants at the Tuna Canyon Detention Station. Thank you for educating the residents of the northeastern Fernando Valley about this difficult period in our nation's history, and I wish you the very best in all your future endeavors.
Thank you, Rita.
And she represents the 39th Assembly District, which includes the community center. Now, she was born in Michoacan, Mexico, and came here at the age of 12, and was raised in the city of Pacoima. Patty is a devoted wife, mother of 4, and grandmother of 3. And I forgot to read her bio, but the thing is that, she came here at the age of 12 and became naturalized, and now is in the state assembly. But 100 years ago, when the East States came, they could not get naturalized. They could not vote. They could not hold public office. And so it's a big difference now that, we have Norma Mineta here that was in the cabinet of 2 presidents. But, 100 years ago, it was so different. Now, next, we have, Koji Sakai. He's going to talk on behalf of the JAM.
Hi, everybody. My name is Koji Steven Sakai. I'm the Vice President of Programs at the Japanese American National Museum. That title sounds a lot more special than it really is. I do a lot of work, and we do a lot of everything. I do want to thank, on behalf of the Japanese American National Museum, I'd like to thank everyone for inviting us. We're very honored to be here at such an important event. I'd also like to personally thank all the members of the museum. I'm sure there are a lot of them here. Without you guys, without your support, the museum would not be able to do almost anything that we are doing currently, and most importantly, wouldn't be able to pay my salary. And my son wouldn't be able to eat, which would be a really bad thing. Also, I would like to quickly introduce Ann Burrow. She is our interim president and CEO, so please, after the program, we would love to have you come and say hello to her. When Nancy, Sigrid, Kanji, and June Burke came to the museum to tell me about this program, or tell me about this possible exhibition and whether we can do it at the museum, I had my doubts. I hear a lot of ideas come to me, and most of them never happen. But when these 4 people came to me and they told me their idea and I saw their passion, we quickly really believed in it. And why is this so important? It's a story that most people don't know. In fact, every time I drive by it on the 210, I tell my son, this is where they locked up our people. This is important to make sure that it never happens again. And my son's only 4, so he doesn't really get this. But I know eventually he will, because I know that every time I drive by it, it's a constant reminder. So I encourage all of you that when you're in the car, when you're driving by, please tell people about it, because it's a part of history. Everybody knows about Manzanar. Nobody really knows about the Griffith Park or the Crystal Cities or some of the other assembly centers. And that's one of the reasons why the museum is honored and excited to be a host of the traveling exhibition. The exhibition is going to be opening on December 10th, and it's going to run through April 8th of next year. So I encourage you guys to come. I know most of you probably are members, so it's free to come. But also for those of your friends who are not members, we do have free days. One of the free days I do want to point out is January 8th is our Oshogatsu. They can come to the museum, have some fun, and also check out this really, really wonderful exhibition. So thank you guys, and thank you for listening to me.
Now, our main speaker is Norman Minetum, and I think all of you know about Norman. When he was a young boy, he was sent to Hard Mountain, and then he came back to California, became a mayor of San Jose, and then went to Congress. And in Congress, remember when we had the redress? Well, it was Norm's job to get the House of Representatives to vote for the redress. So he did that. So let's give him a big hand for that redress, man. Then after that, he was appointed by the Democratic President Clinton, Bill Clinton, to be the Secretary of Commerce. And then when George W. Bush became president, he was appointed Secretary of Transportation. And the Secretary of Transportation, he has a lot of duties, but one is the airplanes in the sky, and the other is the airports. So he was the Secretary of Transportation on 9/11, and remember what happened? The first plane hit the World Trade Center, and the second plane hit another World Trade Center, and the third plane hit the Pentagon. And that's when Norman said, bring down all the airplanes. So all the airplanes in the United States had to land. What was it, 2 hours or so? Yeah. So, that was a big decision to make, to have all the airplanes in the U.S. land. How many? 2,000?
6,438.
Okay, 6,438 airplanes had to land within 2 hours. And then the main thing I remember about that is that after everybody was saying bad things about the Muslims and the Arabs and stuff like that week, Norm said there will be no scapegoating. So no scapegoating, and I think that was a really important statement that Norm made. So let's have a big hand for Norm.
Kanji, thank you very, very much for your role here as the MC. But I want to thank the Japanese American Community Center for all the work that they put into having today's program here, as well as to the Tuna Canyon Detention Center committee that has put together over a couple of years this effort to publicize what happened right here at Tuna Canyon. I'm going to personalize this presentation to talk about what happened at that time, and many of you experienced this very same thing, but I'm going to talk about it through my eyes as a 10-year-older in 1941. And I remember we had just come home from church. It was maybe about 12:20, and we turned the radio on, and then we heard all this news about the Japanese attacking Pearl Harbor. And so relatively quickly, because my dad was I guess you call it community leader in San Jose, there were many people calling to find out, what do you think is going to be the impact of the Japanese bombing Pearl Harbor on us here on the mainland? And so about 1 o'clock, Joyce from the next door home and we had a hedge, and then we had a little cutout at the hedge down at the bottom where Irving next door or Joyce next door could come over to our place, or I could go over to their place without having to go through the front door. And about 1 o'clock, Joyce Hirano came running in our back door saying, "The police are taking Pop away, the police are taking Pop away." So my dad ran out the front door to go next door. But by that time, Mr. Hirano had already been taken. And Mrs. Hirano and Irving, who were home at the time, did not know who came to pick up Mr. Hirano or where he had gone. So my dad called the city manager of San Jose and said, "What's this all about?" And the city manager said, "I have no idea what you're talking about. Why don't you talk to the chief of police?" And the chief of police said again, "I know nothing about what you're talking about, but why don't you call Sheriff Emmett and see whether or not he knows anything about it." So when he calls Sheriff Emmett said, "Well, I know about it. It's not my operation, it's the FBI. And I'll call the FBI and ask them to talk to you about it." Well, about 4:30, the special agent in charge of the FBI office in San Jose actually dropped over to the house to explain what they were doing. And they were picking people up who were sympathetic to the Japanese effort. And so Mr. Hirano next door was the executive secretary of the San Jose Japanese Association, which was really a social organization. I remember having these three-legged races on the picnics that they used to sponsor. But in any event, here's Mr. Hirano, who was executive secretary of the social organization in the San Jose area. When he was picked up, Buddhist priests, Shinto priests were being picked up. Oddly enough, our own minister from the Japanese Methodist Church was not picked up. And as the FBI agent was talking about who they were targeting, and he talked about those who are sympathetic to the Japanese cause and to community leaders. Well, my dad thought, I'm a community leader. How is it I'm not being talked to or being picked up in some way? So in certain ways, he was a little irritated, I guess, that he was not considered a community leader. So after the FBI agent left, my mother and dad packed up a suitcase just in case they might come back. All of you will remember that after Executive Order 9066 went up, there were these big placards that went up saying instructions to all those of Japanese ancestry, alien and non-alien. As a 10-year-old kid, as I looked at that sign, I wondered, who's a non-alien? And I asked my brother, he says, "You, a citizen." I said, "Well, then why don't they call me a citizen?" And that's why to this day, I cherish the word citizen, because our own government wasn't willing to use that in describing us. And so, I don't know how many of you have stood up, beat your chest and said, "I'm a proud non-alien of the United States of America." I don't think you have. And yet, our own government really didn't recognize us as citizens. And then the selective draft boards, selective service draft boards. And I saw my brother crying, he was 19 years old, crying in April of '42. And I said, "Well, what's the matter, Al?" He said, "Well, here's my draft card. It says 1A, which meant fit and willing to serve." And I got this new one today, and I didn't know what it meant, but it said 4C. So I just called the Selective Service Board to find out what 4C meant. And that was enemy alien. So here was a kid born and raised in San Jose, now a sophomore at San Jose as a pre-med major. And so it was a time when people were really concerned about what's our own future going to be. And General John DeWitt was the commanding general of the Western Civil Defense Command, Washington, Oregon, and California. So the executive order said that they were delegating to the Secretary of War the power to intern people. Didn't say Japanese, German, Italian. And so General DeWitt took the Executive Order 9066, and he's the one who coined the phrase, once a JAP, always a JAP. And he figured if Japan could attack Pearl Harbor, they could probably attack the west coast of the United States. And there were 120,000 people of Japanese ancestry in Washington, Oregon, California. So he commandeered racetracks and county fairgrounds to house people because they had a built-in housing, namely the horse stables. And you know, I've only seen my dad cry 3 times. Once was on December 7th because he couldn't understand why the land of his birth was now attacking the land of his heart. And the second time was May 29th, 1942, when we boarded the train in San Jose to go off somewhere. We didn't know that at that time that we were going to Santa Anita, the racetrack here in Arcadia. And all the screens were drawn and we couldn't see out. But I looked at my dad as we were pulling out of San Jose, and there were all these tears coming down. And the third time I saw him cry was when my mother, his wife of 43 years, passed away in 1956. So all of us experienced this, and we know what kind of trauma it was, because we could only carry to camp, or take to camp what we could carry. And my mother was really fastidious. She used to iron sheets, but she couldn't take an iron to camp because that was a contraband article with radios and cameras. So, but we could only take what we could carry. And so 120,000 people were scooped up from their homes and put into camps. And I remember when we got to Santa Anita, fortunately, all the horse stables had already been filled. So because we were one of the last groups to come in, we were housed in barracks in the parking lot at Santa Anita. And then from there, we went on to Hart Mountain, Wyoming. My dad, being an Issei, as I said, loved this country, and he wanted to do something to help in the war effort. And so he applied to the ASTP program, Army Specialized Training Program. And he ended up in Chicago, at the University of Chicago, teaching Japanese to U.S. Army military personnel through the Army Specialized Training Program. And I remember when he was leaving camp, he had asked for permission for my mother and me to accompany him. And the Army said, no, you have to stay behind. So we stayed at Hart Mountain. And then we were finally released in December of '43 to go to Chicago. Now, I want to commend all of you who have been involved in this story. Because like Mr. Hirano, actually after 3 months being gone, the family still didn't know where he was. And it turned out he was in Bismarck, North Dakota, another Department of Justice detention center. And so we must publicize these kinds of experiences that a small group, 120,000 people, who by accident of birth were of Japanese ancestry, and our US population at that time was probably about 115 million. So you figure here's about 1% of our population that's being scooped up to be forced from their homes and into detention centers. There are very few who know about Tuna Canyon or Griffiths Park, Sand Island, and about 4 months ago, I visited the Honolulu site in Hawaii. And when I went through that site, I thought, man, I thought we had it bad at Santa Anita or at Hart Mountain. But when you see the circumstances under which these people were imprisoned at Honolulu, it was really bad. Now, there was a mixture of prisoners of war who were in 10 cities over here, and then there were about 600 people of Japanese ancestry who were in quarters there at Honolulu. I wouldn't even describe them as barracks, because their housing conditions, sitting in the middle of a swamp, a gully, and it really was terrible. But it's important that we continue to publicize what happened as a result of Executive Order 9066. Now let me turn to 9/11, and I was having a breakfast meeting with the Deputy Vice Premier of Belgium, who was also the Minister of Transport, and that was the morning that the World Trade Center was attacked. And I had heard about the first attack. And so my Chief of Staff called me from that meeting, and I went from the conference room where we were having breakfast, went into my office. And at the other end of the office was a TV console, and you could recognize the World Trade Center with black smoke coming out of this one building. And as I stood there watching the television, all of a sudden there's this gray object that went across the screen, disappeared, and then from the left-hand side of the screen, this yellow, white, orangey, billowy cloud. And I go, wow, you know, what was that? Or words to that effect. And so I really started listening to the commentary on the television and doing some channel surfing. And so after doing that for a little while, I went back into the conference room and I said, Jane, who's the head of Federal Aviation Administration, Jane Garvey, you gotta get back to your operations center. And Mrs. Durant, I really don't know what's going on in New York City, but it's something I'm gonna have to be involved in. So by the time I left the conference room to go back into my office, someone had called the office saying, get the secretary over here to the White House right away. So I packed my briefcase with some government manuals, other things, and went down to the car, and then went over to the White House. And as we were going in West Executive Drive, people are running out of the White House, they're running out of the executive office building. And I said to my driver and security guy, is there something wrong with this picture? We're driving in and everybody else is running away. So got out of the car, went into the White House, and the guard said, Mr. Clark, Dick Clark is waiting for you in the Situation Room to brief you. And Dick Clark was a security advisor to President Bush. So I went in there and he briefed me. But it wasn't really much more than what I had already heard and seen on television. And then he said, you've got to be in the POC. I said, what's the POC? He said, PEOC, Presidential Emergency Operations Center. And that's the bunker that's way under the White House that's advertised as being nuclear bomb proof. So I hope we never have to test whether that is true or not. But I got down there about maybe, 9:20 or so, and there's a long conference table, maybe 40 feet long, and 12 or 15 feet wide, with chairs all around that table and phones between each chair. So I decided I'd sit in the middle of that table and set up this phone to the Department of Transportation. Said, don't hang up, keep the line open. This phone I set up at the Operations Center at the FAA. And I said, don't hang up, keep it open. and the vice president was sitting right across from me. And soon after that, a military assistant came in and said, there's a plane heading towards DC. So I said to Monty Belger, who was on the phone with me, I said, Monty, what do you have on radar of a plane coming towards DC? He said, well, we've been tracking a plane on the radar, and it's just got a blip dot on the radar screen. And with the 30-second sweep of the radar, we're following that target, but we don't know anything about the airplane. In my office on my credenza, I had a monitor outlining 48 states and Alaska and Hawaii, and it was peppered with dots. And if I took my mouse and put it on one of the dots, then a flag would come up saying, UA 123, United Airlines Flight 123. And then it would say B752, Boeing 757, Series 200. And then it would say, let's say, PDX, and a number of navigational points, and then it would say ORD. So I knew that plane was going from Portland, Oregon, through these navigational points to Chicago O'Hare. And then the second line would show the compass direction of the plane, the speed of the plane, altitude, everything about the airplane. But that transponder had been turned off on that airplane. And so I asked Monty, where's that plane now? And it's hard to look at a radar set and take a point on the radar set and relate it to a point on the ground. And he said, well, we're not sure. It's probably over some middle part of Pennsylvania. So every so often I'd ask him, where's that plane? And he'd be guessing. He'd say, well, probably north of Baltimore. Well, where's it now? Oh, probably near Roslyn. Where's it now? Between Pentagon City and the National Airport. And then he said, oops. I said, what's the matter? What's oops? He said, we just lost the target. Where'd you lose the target? I don't know, somewhere between Pentagon City and National Airport. And then about that time, someone broke into the phone saying, Mr. Secretary, we just got a call from a Arlington County police officer who saw an American Airlines go into the Pentagon. So I said to Monty, Monty, when you see one of something, it's an accident. But when you see something similar and within a short period of time, you think of it as a trend. Now here we've had 3 same occurrences within a relatively short period of time. And that means it's a plan or an action. So I said, in the military they have something called stand down. And we're gonna have to do our own stand down because we don't know what's going on. So Monty, bring all the planes down. And he was an air traffic controller from the time he joined the FAA and was now the number 2 person in the whole agency. And he said, we'll bring all the planes down per pilot discretion. I said, Monty, screw pilot discretion. I want all the planes down because I didn't want to have a pilot over Albuquerque or Phoenix deciding on his own that he's going to continue flying into LA. And as I said, there were 4,638 planes in the air at the time. And with the tremendous work of the air traffic controllers, working with the flight deck crew and the flight attendants in the cabin, preparing their passengers to land at places they didn't anticipate being at. And but in 2 hours and 20 minutes, we were able to bring all those planes down. The immediate consequence of that was people talking about banning Middle Easterners from flying, keep Muslims off airplanes. And by the afternoon, the CEOs of the airlines saying, hey, when can we go back into the air? And I said, not until we develop a new security regimen for the airlines to follow. Now, up to that point, the airlines took care of their own security. And generally, they would put out the security contract for their airlines and then award it to the lowest bid. And so we were really not getting quote, security, unquote, at that point. So I said, we're not going to allow planes to go back up until we get a new security regimen in place. And so the staff started to put together the security regimen Tuesday morning, and we were finally able to get it out Friday evening, late Friday afternoon. But on September 13th, there was a cabinet meeting with the House and Senate Republican and Democratic leaders. And towards the end of that meeting, Congressman David Bonnier from Detroit said, Mr. President, we have a very large population of Arab Americans in Michigan, and they're very, very concerned about the rhetoric about banning them to travel, keep Muslims off airplanes. There was even some talk about rounding up Middle Easterners, putting them in camps. And President Bush said, David, you're absolutely correct. We're also concerned about the rhetoric that we're hearing on television, seeing in the print media. But we don't want to have happen today what happened to Norm in 1942. I mean, you could have taken a feather and knocked me off my cabinet chair when the president said that. So when I got back to the situation room, or to the PI, I called my staff and I said, where are you in terms of developing the regimen? He said, well, we're pretty close there, and we'll have it out tomorrow. But the very first item on that, on the principles they were following to put out the regulations, was no racial or ethnic profiling. So after what I heard at the cabinet meeting that day, I felt assured that maybe what we were going to do was going to pass muster. And as we completed the security regimen, the White House said, okay, and that's what we released in the form of regulations on Friday afternoon. So again, another example of why it is important that places like Tuna Canyon Detention Center is publicized, and we get more and more people to know about the Department of Justice detention centers, and Sand Island, and Honolulu, Crystal City, just to be able to let people what happened at that time. It happened to 120,000 people. And I think the amazing thing about that experience is that there wasn't rancor or bitterness within the Japanese American community, but there was a very strong commitment that something like this should never, ever happen again. And so, and it was the young Japanese Americans who were questioning their parents and grandparents, what happened in 1942? You haven't told me anything about it. What happened? How'd that happen? Why didn't you, lay on the streets, lay on the railroad tracks, and you can't look at an incident in 1942 through the lens of 1978, and because the circumstances are pretty different, and the nature of the Japanese American community is also very different. But that's what led to, finally, the Civil Liberties Act of 1988 that President Reagan signed on August 10th of 1988. So I want to thank all of you for your role, whether it was contributing money, time, whatever effort you did in getting this exhibit together. And we're going to be very, very proud to have that exhibit at Janama starting on the 10th of January. So again, to all of you, thank you very, very much. And we hope to see you on the 10th of January at the Japanese American National Museum. Thank you very much.
And Dr. Alfred Yoshitsuki was born in Boyle Heights in 1941. His family lived at the Concord Church of Los Angeles, where his father was a reverend for over 50 years. For the past 22 years, Alfred has presided as a Reverend of the Congo Church of Los Angeles. Reverend
Haile, solemn greetings, Ippai Shakshu. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me with 4 audible claps as a symbol of all of our hearts coming together as one. Shihakshu. Rite of purification, Onusa Gyoji. Chido Keirei, let us bow reverently. May each and every one of your diseases and discomforts, pain and suffering, and all negativities now be dispelled to the great and vast works of the principal parent of the universe. Allow each and every one of us to be in the purest state of mind. Thus, be blessed and purified. 本日のご来席、天地の親神様へお届け申し上げます。ありがとうございます。最終奏上 Sacred Norito Prayer Recitation. Jido Keirei, let us all pray.もう賢き天地金の神の王を広間へ木神金光大臣の御前に仕込みかしこみままを咲く清きところもやましきところも隔てなく天地の神は御守りあるものぞ授業ことはじめなどは氏子の使い勝手の良いのが良い仮想である神は昼夜も遠きも近きも問わざるものぞ差し支えある時は先に断りおいて願いあることを頼めと教えたまえることくいとも尊き限りなりける確定今日橋もこれのラトゥナキャニオンディテンションセンターコアレーション橋このアメリカの地において大見かけの間に間に事業進ましめたるはいともありがたきことの極みなりける確定トゥーナキャニオンディテンションセンター移動展示会を清め払い式使え祭りなおも行く先の大御影こむり祭らんと 見回り使い松楽を平らに着こしめしたまい、今より行く先さらに狼の御心を呈し、新人の心を持て、移動展示を新しきためにすべてのお運びの上、良きご都合遅れ合わせを被りてもなくことなく、煩わしきことなく、悪事災難をことごとく払い清めて、身も心も健やかにあらしめたまい、展示に励み努めて世のお役に立ちて喜ばれる移動展示として、ますます広く高く立ち栄えゆかしめたまいて、誠の安心を被らしめたまえと、かしこみかしこみままをする。Living spirit of our founder, Ikigami Konko Daijin, principal parent of the universe. In the magnificent presence of the universal works of the principal parent, the source of all life and energy, we are gathered in complete gratitude to the Tuna Canyon Detention Center and Station Coalition for their tenacious, patient, and persevering good works to manifest the Tuna Canyon Detention Center traveling exhibit here today at the esteemed San Fernando Valley Community Center in Pacoima, California. May this exhibit continue to evolve in many magical and miraculous ways as it has already done. May this traveling exhibit raise the consciousness and educate every American and individual citizen who experiences its content. From that consciousness, may a better American society, a greater American nation, and a more peaceful community and world be born anew. Allow each and every one of us today to pray wholeheartedly with a single heart. The divine favor depends upon the sincerity of our prayers, thoughts, and intent on this very day, this very moment. Pray. ありがとうございました。Thank you. Saishu Tamakushi Hoken, offering of the symbol of the true heart, Tamakushi.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. At this time, as your names are called, the respective representatives, come forth to the the table set before you in the center, and please receive the branch with a white tassel paper, thusly stem with the right palm, leaves on your left palm, and come in front of the table. Please turn it clockwise with the stem facing the sacred center, which we have selected for today. Place the branch on the die and offer 2 solemn claps in tribute to the exhibit that is about to be traveling throughout the entire nation. And just to allay any fears, by offering the symbol of the true heart, Tamakushi branch, this is not a conversion ceremony, folks, okay? I want you to rest assured. If a branch and a piece of paper is going to convert you, we have a lot of work to do, okay? So at this time, Nancy Oda will be calling forth the respective names of the dignitaries and representatives. And I also asked Nancy, at the very end, I'd like to have 4 or 5 random members of the community come forth to represent all of the representatives here present today. So first the dignitaries, and of course I'm honored that my older brother, like Norman Mineta, Honorable Norman, is here. I've known him since he was only a mayor while he was in San Jose. He came, as all of you know, George Takei was the MC at the time in Little Tokyo when we blessed the photo wall that has the ceramics with the history of the Japanese Americans. And that was my first meeting with Honorable Norman at that time. And then, of course, he went further on. And then 2011, opening of the official learning center, Heart Mountain, I had the other opportunity to meet with the distinguished Senator Daniel Inoue, Norman, and then former Senator Simpson at the time. So I'm delighted and honored to my role model. Thank you. Hi, so Nancy, yoroshiku. And my assistant, Heidi Marie, and her husband, Roland, came all the way from Austria to be helping me, okay?
So, Mr. Mineta, we're going to ask you to show us how to do it. Thank you so much. And then girls from the Japanese American National Museum, we appreciate you so much. I'd like to go to Paul Jonokuchi, representing the Community Center. Dr. Lloyd Hitt. Consul General Akira Chiba. I put your words together. Sorry. For your vision and your perseverance. Haru Kuromiya, please. Representing the children. I'd like to bring up Barbara Michael, who is here all day preparing our food. Itsuko Shinbashi, please. There are just so many of you that have helped us. I hope you understand we're representing all of us in different ways. And I'd like to invite 3 young people to represent everyone, because you're our future. So come on up. One being my grandson.
Ladies and gentlemen, when these youngsters offer the symbol of the True Heart Tamagotchi, please join them in their 2 solemn claps. Yeah. 2 more. Place it on the side, gentlemen. And ladies and gentlemen, join these 3 gentlemen with 2 solemn audible claps. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. As I said, there's so many of you who have done so much, but I'd like to recognize Gerald Kubatar, because he brought us to this day, and I'm so grateful that you have come. He was Richard Alicorn's deputy, field deputy, and he believed in our project, and with his guidance, we have become. Thank you, Gerald.
Ladies and gentlemen, just one final remark. I want to thank Nancy Oda, who just called forth the names of each of you representatives. Very quick story. I know I repeated this on many occasions about Nancy, but she's like my sister. Her father, Master Inoue, was my judo sensei, and I started learning judo at the Konko Church Youth Hall at age 15, and when Sensei taught us these particular judo moves, at first he said, okay, now that you learned this move, my 2 daughters, Ernie, Jane, and Nancy will have free exercise with both of you. I told all my classmates, you know, my buddies, I said, God, girls gonna teach us something? You know. And then Nancy and Ernie Jane was throwing us around like a piece of red rag. And ever since age 15, ladies and gentlemen, I had the utmost respect for women. When Nancy says something, I move. And I really thank her father, otherwise I'd be a juvenile delinquent out there. But thank you for this marvelous, delightful opportunity to serve each and every one of you. The credit goes to all of you. I'm just here to assist with the 4,500-year tradition of the Japanese spiritual, cultural, universal tradition. We are not a religion. I just want to make that very clear, because the Western academia, spotlights and brings labels to different organizations and cultural organizations. And this is why I emphasize the fact that this is not a conversion ceremony. The 4,000 years, we never converted anybody to the Shinto Japanese spiritual cultural tradition. And we're still around, folks, okay? And America is only less than 250 years. Even one cultural art of Japan, you take martial arts, floral arrangements, even kabuki is 400 years old. It's twice the age of the entire history of America. And you and I need to recognize the value and preciousness of a Japanese spiritual cultural tradition. And I'm not just pro-Japanese, I'm third generation spoiled American brat, just like all of you, okay? And all I'm trying to do is get deeper understanding of my own personal culture. And I really want to thank the coalition for bringing all this to life, because, I was just in diapers when Norman was, he's my senior, of course, and honorably. And so I have a lot to learn still. And I'm learning with each and every one of you. And I thank Nancy and the coalition for, exposing and disclosing all this fabulous information. And one of the reasons I'm participating, my father was at La Canyon Detention Center. And I thought, my gosh, no wonder I didn't know my dad until I was about 3 or 4 years old, when Mom and I were at Topaz Detention Center. And when Dad was in the barracks, I kept telling my Mom, who's this strange man in the house? And he finally slapped me around, and then finally found out that he's my dad. And ever since then, we started developing a relationship. But it takes a toll psychologically, emotionally, and physically. And had I known at 3 that slapping around a child was child abuse, I would have sued him. But I didn't know any better at the time. And I've had my relationship, I repaired and restored my relationship. I had the closest relationship as the eldest son to my father. And so I'm just delighted that in his memory, I'm here to serve all of you as well. And I just lost my mother of 100 years young at Tuesday morning this past week, May 27th. And Norman was describing so elegantly that how the parents and families, my mom was a San Francisco girl. I was only in diapers, of course, and she had to carry me, a suitcase, and diapers, I understand, to go back to San Francisco at the time, because my father was taken to Santa Fe, New Mexico from Tuna Canyon, and then there for about 3 years. So ladies and gentlemen, it is a learning process for me as well, and I continue to congratulate each and every one of you. I continue to pray for all of you who are here today. So each and every day, may you sleep in peace, awake in joy, and embrace every single day with a heart of gratitude. That's the beginning of divine favors. And also, lastly, Mahatma Gandhi said, in order to find yourself, get lost in the service of others. In order to find yourself, get lost in serving others. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Four solemn audible claps, shihakushu. Taige recessional.
queen and our court is passing out the sake. So could the president of the center, Paul, would you come up and lead us?
Does everybody have a little cup of sake or a toast? So we'll rise, go stand for the toast. I would like to make a toast to the Tuna Canyon traveling exhibit for the safe journey across the nation. Kanpai! Thank you. You could take your seat. Thank you.
I want the coalition to come up, including Russ Engel. We're going to take a coalition picture, and then the descendants picture. So Kurauka girls, the Chiwani girls. I would like all the descendants to come forward. We're going to take a family picture. Joanne, Kumamoto, we're going to take a family picture. So let's start with the coalition. Terry, please stay, thank you. Okay, and then I'd like to have our distinguished guests in the front row of the coalition picture. That would be very special.
Ellen Endo? Oh, we're